Hello everyone and welcome to the official SuperCoach AFL podcast for 2026. We are back in the studio for our first official show of the preseason, which is now in full swing. All clubs back in full training, of course, and we want to know what is happening out at Clubland. Of course, a huge piece of putting our teams together over the preseason is getting those little nuggets of gold for what is happening out at Clubland, who's flying on the track and who is playing in a new position, what can really break out in SuperCoach for us in 2026. So we want to get some answers, and we get the journos who are out on the ground for Code Sports to tell us those answers. And first, cab off the rank is Matt Forrest, who I'm very happy to welcome to the show. Foz, we know you're a big SuperCoach man and you've been out at Clubland over the last few weeks as well. So you've got the inside word for us on the Kangaroos, Collingwood, and we might talk a bit about Hawthorn as well because I know you follow them extremely closely. But how's your SuperCoach team looking at this stage of the season? I know you're a bit of a more of a long-term sort of operator. Are you one of these guys who gets in and changes your team every 5 minutes, or are you playing the long game?
Most years I do. I typically go through it a little bit and play around with it over the course of the preseason. But this year I have disconnected myself a little bit. Last year was a bit of a mess, so I'm trying a new tactic of not really paying attention too much to the nitty-gritty selections, and I'll get there eventually. As you said, it's a case of going out to trainings, paying attention to what's going on the track, and eventually the team will come together, I'm sure, in the next sort of 2 weeks or so when we start seeing teams actually take on match sim, take on other teams as well in the unofficial practice matches. And then obviously the community series is really, it's not that far away now. We're about, 5 weeks from the start of the season?
Yeah, crazy. So, I mean, I guess that's probably a good place to start in terms of people who, we see a lot of, things coming out on social media about, players winning time trials and who's flying and these kinds of things. But what are clubs actually doing at this stage of the season? How seriously can we be taking, if we hear someone's at halfback or something like that, what are you actually seeing that gives us that kind of intel? Well,
they're starting to do match sim and really it was pretty limited pre-Christmas. It starts to ramp up in January, and then obviously pushing into February, it starts to really become a main focal point of training sessions. They usually have at least one quite a heavy session of, whether it's a half or 3/4 worth of football, of real match-like simulation where they get in actual umpires, get them in to adjudicate and run full training that way. And then there's a couple of lighter sessions where it's focused on drills and on normal sort of skill stuff that most sides do. Obviously, they have fitness through there as well, and then gym work as well. So there's plenty of different days, I guess, over the course of the week where they're doing different things. But we mainly try and get out to the training sessions and watch the match sim content. So we typically know when clubs are doing most of their work, and the heavier sessions. We'll speak to the clubs about that and try and attend those sessions, because that's when you get the nuggets of gold, like players trying different positions or who's sort of in the best team against the second team. Some clubs try and mix it up a little bit. So everyone's a little bit different, but it's about going to the sessions and making sure you are paying attention and noticing exactly what's going on. So it can be a little bit challenging, but we've got a pretty good team here that crosses off all 18 clubs.
Yeah, awesome. So I guess, obviously the rehab group is kind of a big part of that as well, and players going through there. So we'll talk about that for sure. But we may as well start with the Kangaroos, because I think there's plenty of interest there. Every year they seem to throw up some really great SuperCoach picks for us, some of the best scorers in the game, despite the fact that they're not necessarily winning that many games, and potentially some rookies around as well when you've got a club that's getting some early draft picks. And from, we're very focused this year a bit on, certainly when I'm looking at my players, who's got buys when, and the Roos don't have one of those early buys. Obviously don't play in opening round, so, nothing to worry about from that front. So, what have you seen out at Arden Street, and how are they looking as a team, and who's standing out? Who's burning up the track? That's what we want to know.
Well, the obvious one is Harry Sheasel. Everyone talks about him, and I feel like he's going to be in almost every team this year. Obviously, he's eligible as a forward this year, which came as a little bit of a surprise to me, but he certainly is a superstar of the competition already, so it won't waste too much time on him. Just pick him and just move on.
Currently in 70% of teams.
Yeah, it's really not
the top 2 or 3 most.
It's more players. Of a while everyone's zigging, you're zagging if you're going against it.
Is he playing any forward time, or it's really sort of full time mid now for
it's
him?
mainly through the midfield so far. Like he is so damaging in all 3 lines. So it's just, I think wherever you pick him, he's either going to be setting up goals up forward or kicking them himself. If he goes to the midfield, he's going to accumulate, and then off the halfback, we know what he can do. But that position is sort of gone for him now. It's mainly playing that mid forward role, which is so important in footy nowadays. It's a really damaging position. So I think we'll see him as the starting mid, and then pushing forward and probably kicking, 15, 20 goals for the year is probably the pass mark for him, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, SuperCoach scoring system, like, it was good when he was just racking him up off half back, but, you know, if you're involved in those scoring chains, SuperCoach really rewards that. So, yeah, it's hard to think of a reason not to pick Harry Sheasel unless you just really want to be, you know, different from everybody else playing. But it's a massive risk, because if he gets off to a flying start and you haven't got him, you'll be playing catch-up for the rest of the year. But, yeah, I think that half-back role, I know at North, has been so lucrative for us, you know, ever since the days of Aaron Hall and Jack Zeeble. You know, we had Caleb Daniel last year, and obviously Sheasel different times. So what's it looking like at the moment? Because Colwyn McKerch is someone who presents potentially some really good value. He's 450k odd. And when he did go back in the second half of last year, he scored really well, averaged about 103, I think, for the second half of the year. But are we confident that that's where he'll play this season? I'm seeing some conflicting reports. I
think that he'll get some time there. There's talk about him pushing up on a wing or into the midfield as well and trying to expose him through there. They're very bullish on Riley Hardiman as a player. He's someone who's really come along. I think he's priced about 260k. You know, hasn't played a whole heap of footy, but he's a really good size. He's a bit taller and a bit more defensive minded than someone like a Caleb Daniel, who was a bit of a questionable defensive player. Obviously, we all know him for his attacking threats and his scoring ability in SuperCoach, which is pretty much all we care about. Well, when footy teams are picking a side, Hardiman probably just has that little extra, I guess, string to his bow about playing in defence. So I'm keen to see him playing a fair bit of footy, and he uses the ball so well by foot. But I think it'll be him, Caleb Daniel, and we'll have Colby McKerch sort of rotating through those main distributing roles. Josh Goda's another one who hasn't played that much footy. We've rarely seen him at AFL level. We've only seen him a little bit in the VFL level as well, just battling a few injuries. But they're trying to get him, free and clear of that. But yeah, I think it'll be Colby McKerch mostly, a little bit of Riley Hardiman, and obviously Caleb Daniel's going to be down there as well. Yeah,
Daniel, I think, feel like it's been a bit of a forgotten man this year, because last year everybody picked him. He was so cheap, and then he's scoring sort of up and down a little bit, and by the end of the year, people would sort of off him a little bit, but he's still there, obviously, for the Kangaroos, and I think he's still going to, take one of those roles. He'll get plenty of the ball, so don't forget about him. And probably not as a SuperCoach pick, but when we're thinking about who fills those roles in the team. I mean, another name that bobbed up that I hadn't thought about at all, but did you see anything of as Cooper Harvey, who has played mainly as a forward, but maybe trialling him at halfback?
Yeah, they're playing him down back a little bit, especially with Jackson Archer going down with his ACL injury. It sort of opens up a spot down there. I think Cooper Harvey would be more of that medium lockdown-y type role, which is less lucrative from a SuperCoach perspective. I don't know if he's in the best 22 or 23 now as it stands, especially in that role. But it'll be interesting to see when they start the official practice match or the unofficial practice match, then the community series, and sort of see how they're lining up with 22, 23, 26 players. For now, it's a little bit confusing because they are a team that mixes the A and B side. You see, Wardlaw lining up against Sheasel and playing against each other as midfielders. So obviously they're going to both be in the senior side when fit. So it's a little bit hard to pick exactly what North Melbourne's best 23 is going to look like. But I would expect that he's probably not in there just yet.
What about you mentioned Wardlaw? So I know the Phantom is absolutely massive on him, has been for a few years, and we've seen he can score. He just needs to get a decent run at it with his body, but he's looking okay so far.
Yeah, he's been on a slightly modified program. They're trying to hold him back a little bit. He's had soft tissue injuries. He's had a bit of concussion problems as well. But for the most part, he hasn't had any big sort of blocks of training missed. It's mainly a case of, and they're doing it with all their rookies and all the younger players, I guess, where they're just trying to hold them back slightly. All they want to do is train and get out on the park. But it's a case of if you can do 80% of the preseason, and then you're doing really well. Most players don't hit that number, and it's just a case of if they're fully fit, just keep them to 80% and just let them sort of coast into the year. Not coast, but just if you're doing 100%, then something's going to go wrong, and you're probably going to get injured. So it's about holding them back, even when they feel fully fine and ready to go.
Yeah, so he's 396k. So another tempting option there in the midfield. I mean, the other big name, obviously at North, is Tristan Cherry. I saw some things early in the preseason that they just put him at full forward for a match sim or something like that. I don't think we need to worry about that. But one thing that is interesting, I don't know how you say they get AFL umpires down there. Can you pick up at this stage? Is there anything that's going to change with these new rules, especially around the rucks, that they can't wrestle as much and stuff like that? Is that something that you can actually spot in match simulation?
You certainly can. It's more when they give away free kicks or own free kicks that weren't there last year. So that is interesting to watch. I think Cherry is going to be fine. I'd be more. He does have a good leap on him, despite being one of the better wrestlers in the AFL. It'll be more interesting to see how North Melbourne start to blood Taylor Goad. If they line up, Jack Darling as that second ruck or Cooper Trembath. Like there's a couple of different options there for them to play as a second or a third tall alongside Nick Larkey. Obviously, Cam Zerhar is a bigger body, but he's not exactly a massive tall target. I think Goad will get his opportunity this year. He has been uber impressive. I don't think he's a constant selection, and I wouldn't be picking him in SuperCoach.
But is he someone they could play and give Cherry a bit of a chopper? Because Cherry's played almost 100% ruck time for the last few years. So
Goad is a 207 centimetre, incredibly athletic and skillful ruck. He has trialled as a bit of as a forward target, both in the VFL last year, but also just at pre-season. But when match sim sort of starts, he is the clear number 2 ruck at the club. So it's a case of whether they can work in tandem. I know there's a lot of talk about other clubs and how they're going to use 2 rucks. But at this stage, I think Goad's probably outside the side, but they'll be wanting to blood him and give him a few games.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, the other rule change too that I think we're still waiting to see, will it have much of an impact? Certainly in terms of SuperCoach, is the last touch between the arcs. Do they do that at match sim?
They try to, yeah. It doesn't. Sometimes it changes a little bit. They'll toss it in because there's still going to be ball ins from umpires. When it's last disposal, if it's just in the ball's in dispute, it'll still be thrown in. There is still a little bit of that. They sometimes change. If the ball crosses the line, they'll stop play and they'll move the ball to a free kick 20 metres on the wing, like inside the boundary line, try and open the ground up a little bit more. There's different ways to do it, but you can't really pick up on how limiting that's going to be.
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's one definitely, we can watch when the sort of unofficial, as you say, and then the official practice matches start, and if it's just knocks a couple of stoppages off a game and do the rucks more just hang a kick behind the play, or different clubs will probably manage it differently. So, we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. So any other names from North? We haven't talked about any rookies. Lockie Doverston was their top draft pick last year. Sort of heard him talked about as a bit of a Nick Watson type who scored okay in his first year, despite being a small forward. Is Lockie someone we could look at, or any other cheapies down there?
Yeah, Doverston will absolutely debut. I've got him penciled in round 1. North Melbourne officials are very confident that he'll be there and selected for the start of the season. So I don't know if he's going to be a great SuperCoach pick. I know that Nick Watson turned out okay. Those small forwards are always a bit of a slower burn, but Watson also walked into a Hawthorn side that turned out to be pretty okay, and North Melbourne's going to be struggling a little bit more. So I'd be more mindful of that for him. Sort of think of Isaac Kako last year, where everyone jumped to pick him, and he was okay. Didn't kick any bags.
Played every week.
And he scored points here and there, but there was no massive score that really caused that spike of value to go up. I really like Hugo Mukunda.
Okay, this is a new name for me.
New name, Smokey to potentially debut
we love
early.
That. Smokey, give us one.
I don't know if he's going to be in the best 22 or 23, but he's been playing off half back. He was drafted as an explosive half forward from the Geelong Falcons, but he's a really mature body. He's quite an aggressive player in terms of the fact that he's just going to put his head over the ball, win it, and he's got a really big, strong frame as well. So he's been a really impressive player down back. I don't know if it's going to be an accumulating role for him or if it's just going to be that sort of Cooper Harvey style, like more locked down. But he's one to watch for certain. Then it's Braden George. He had a bit of a hamstring complaint recently. If he can get fit and stay fit, they're really keen to see what he can do. Yeah, so there's definitely a few players that could bob up, especially early in the season. Yeah,
awesome. Well, we love that, a bolter early on. So, that's what we get you on for the explosive, the big nuggets like that. But we'll move on to Collingwood. So, obviously, team in a slightly different situation to North in terms of their premiership clock and all these kinds of things. And in the fixture too, they do play opening round, so they have a bye in round 2. Share that with Brisbane, Carlton and Geelong. So, maybe not the worst bye. I don't know if we're going to pick heaps of those guys from heaps of those teams. So, who have you liked down at Collingwood?
Once again, Nick Watson's been fantastic. He had a bit of an ankle complaint, but
Nick Dacos?
Yeah, he's absolutely fit and flying. He's looking great. His running partner Ned Long has been really impressive as well. He's looked to be even leaner than he was last year. obviously played a bit of footy with as a sub as well as alongside Tom Mitchell and didn't score that well. But when he was without Tom Mitchell as a running partner as well as not copying the sub vest, he was outstanding. He had 410 scores. He had 590s, 480s, only one sub 70. So he was for a player who sort of came out of obscurity. Mid-season pickup for Collingwood after failing to really crack in at the Hawks. He was pretty impressive last year. Hopefully, he can sort of make that extra leap into.
He'll be just part of the starting midfield now.
He's firmly in the starting midfield. They look to be running with Dacos or Nick Dacos along with Ned Long. Then it's a rotation of whether it's Josh Dacos is getting a bit of a look in there. Jordan De Goey gets a bit of a stint as well. He's having a great preseason as well.
There's two other names that I did want to. Pardon me, that I did want to ask about. So, De Goey's very cheap, around the 300K mark, but obviously his body's been let him down, certainly last year, and he's played a fair bit of forward time, but, early signs, he has scored, up in the high 90s before, and which would be great value, and we can pick him as a forward. So, is he someone you would consider based on what you've seen in the flesh?
He certainly hasn't really missed a beat at training. He's been, when he has been on deck and when I've been there watching, he is been absolutely one of the best players on the park. There was a 5-minute patch in a match sim where he kicked 3 goals, and they were 3 different. One was bursting through the midfield, one was crumbing up forward, and then another one was sort of just getting the rebound and sort of taking a few plays on and booting it from about 50 out. So he's looking really, really sharp. It looks like he'll have a pretty similar mix, that midfield forward role, which is not unexpected for him.
Yeah.
That's the sort of position that.
And I mean, if he's fit, you can score.
Well, that's it. When he's as cheap as he is, you can be picking him and hoping that he scores 85. Anything more is a bonus. So he's definitely on my radar.
Yeah, awesome. And Josh Dacos, I think Nick mentioned in a podcast that he thought he'd come in and play a little bit beside him in the midfield. But do you think we'll see a lot of that? I
think they've been tempted to play him in there. It is quite interesting because he was so limiting to Dan Houston last year. His impact played as a sort of a second rebounding defender, but he's a very different sort of player to Josh, who sort of sweeps, whereas Houston sort of sits a little bit further back. So when Dacos was getting the ball on the halfback flank, Houston was 10, 20 metres behind him on the other side, and he wasn't getting much of it. So I think they're keen to unlock him a little bit and play Dacos through the midfield. He certainly run through the centre at times during match sim. I think once again, similar to Sheasel playing mid-half forward, it's going to be a mix of halfback and mid for Josh Dacos, which will be interesting for Houston. He can't really play midfield. We've never seen him through the centre. I don't think he's a winger for the Pies either. So question marks over Houston, exactly what his role looks like, especially if Dacos ends up slotting into the halfback.
Yeah, interesting. And what other names jumped out? I mean, we haven't had a lot of rookies out of Collingwood for a while, but is there a chance we actually see some cheaper guys?
I think there's a couple of guys that I wouldn't be locking into my team, but just put on the watch list. Harry Demeter has been on the list for a couple of years. Yeah. We've been waiting to see him. He's looking really good. He's looking much bigger than he has in the previous years. He's put on a fair bit of size, so he's been playing off that half-back.
When he was drafted, he talked about how he loved SuperCoach, so he's always been sort of on my watch list, hoping he can crack in.
So I'm keen to see him finally crack in and sort of earn a bit of footy. There's Jacob Ryan, who plays in a similar role. He's got the hair that's just easy to spot, dashing off half-back. So he's a really exciting footballer, but once again, I think he's just slightly behind Demeter. Charlie West is 119K. I think he'll probably push for a key forward role. Don't know exactly how that's going to look in terms of scoring, but that's one there. And then the other one's Joel Cochran, who's another half-back wing. He's a little bit taller than the other two, and Demeter and Ryan. Probably a little bit rawer as a player. I think Nick Blakey, Josh Weddle type of taller, athletic halfback dasher. I just don't know how he cracks in unless there is a Reef McInnes sort of setback where he can't slot in and gain that best 22 or best 23 key position. That's where Cochran would sort of slot in as a depth option there.
What about, you mentioned McInnes and also Harvey Harrison's another one who both sort of missed most of last year through injury and pretty cheap. Do you think they're best 22?
I think they're definitely Reef McInnes once he's fully fit and he's integrated in. He's another one that's been held back a little bit, has done a lot of drill stuff, but also a lot of running on the sideline. So it'll be interesting to see exactly sort of the timeline on him, if he can get right and playing a bit of pre-season footy in the community series. It'll be interesting to see Harvey Harrison as well, where he sort of slots in that forward line. Obviously, without Bobby Hill at the moment, there's no real clear timeline on that. We're hoping to get that in the next week or two. He returns to the club. But, at this stage, there is definitely positions to win in the forward line.
They've had a couple of players go out, not exactly a like for like, we say Mason Cox, but there's some spots there. I mean, the other one that I've actually got sitting on my bench at the moment, but you haven't mentioned him at all, which is a bit of a worrying sign. But when Angus Anderson got drafted by the Pies last year, I sort of just made a mental note because he's 22 or 23, and these are the sort of guys that you think they can be real wins for us in Supercoach. But have you seen much of him?
He hasn't really been playing through the midfield from what I've seen. They're trying to expose him a little bit there, but he is absolutely a mature age rookie that could come in and we've seen guys like this where they get picked up either mid-year or in the SSP or in the rookie draft. For him, it was the national, which is he could come in and walk in and play a bit of footy. There's absolutely positions in that sort of midfield rotation that they're trying to not phase out guys like Scott Pendlebury and Steele Sidebottom, but they need a bit of youth to try and avoid that cliff. So if he comes in and plays a bit of footy, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, all right. Well, definitely another name to watch. So the other club I wanted to ask you about was Hawthorn, which I know you watch very closely. Obviously, the big news, pre-season news out of the Hawks was Will Day going down injured yet again. But with him out and with Warple gone as well to the Cats and no Zach Merritt, it seems like there's some opportunity there potentially for someone to come into the Hawthorn midfield. What do you think the team's actually going to look like?
Yeah, there will be a bit of change there. Obviously, Jai Newcomb, the new co-captain, is going to be a starting midfielder and play most of his footy there. Connor Nash, I think, goes back to playing as that more primary midfielder. He sort of went away from it a little bit last year. He sort of didn't fall out of favour, but was up he was that sort of second rotation midfield. But he should start primary there as a bit more of a defensive player. Connor McDonald has been playing pure midfield this pre-season.
It's very interesting.
He certainly
so it's 381k.
Yeah, he certainly won. He certainly won in the forward line that I will be picking. If you look at his under 18 stats, which I know is a few years ago now, but I even took a mental note of this. Well, not a mental note, a physical note. 29.8 disposals, 6.8 marks, 4.8 tackles, 0.8 goals. So loves the number 8. It turns out, even though he's now wearing the number 9. But he'll absolutely be in the midfield mix to start for Hawthorn. I don't know how much footy he'll play up forward. I think it'll be, once again, that midfield pushing forward. But the main deficiency for him coming out of under 18s footy and into the draft class was his kicking consistency wasn't actually that flash. He was more of a handball first player, inside mid, and had some good defensive traits as well. So we've sort of gone away from that a little bit for him as he's played as a half forward. He's discovered his kicking. He's become a really consistent kick for the Hawks, especially in that forward half. The real question mark now is what his defensive transition's like, because he's played as that high half forward. He hasn't needed to really put on as much pressure there, especially in the system that he plays at the Hawks. So he'll be really interesting to watch as a midfielder. I'm expecting him to be standing in that first bounce come opening round. And then the other two there that I've taken notes on are Josh Weddle, who I think is going to be more wing than true midfield or inside midfield there, but I really want to see him bursting through the centre stoppages there. And then Sam Butler, if he can break into the best 23, I think he's got real breakout potential written all over him. So I'm excited to see what he can do when he gets his opportunity.
Some good names there. Yeah, you did mention opening round. So Hawthorn has a round 3 bye with Gold Coast and Sydney, which is a bit of a rough one because there's a few players there that we might look to pick. But yeah, some interesting names there. And anything on the rookie front, I know Ollie Greaves was someone who slipped through the draft and they got him. We got him as a 99K in Supercoach, which could be great if he actually can get a game. Is that anything we might see early? And Jack Dalton's another one who had some really good numbers as a junior.
Well, certainly with the fact that there's no real, or there is a void in the midfield for the Hawks, they're two guys that could come in early and play. I think both of them have different traits that are going to be appealing to the coaching or the selection panel, really. Greaves is obviously very ready-made in terms of his physical presence. And then Dalton has got an elite fitness base behind him. He's an endurance athlete. He can run all day. So both of them have a chance of debuting. The Hawks traditionally don't debut anyone. We didn't see it. We didn't see one Hawthorn debutant last year. Yep. I think that trend will change. I don't know if it'll be in the first week of the season, but it should come. I think once a bit of VFL form comes into play, they'll start picking these younger guys. I'm keen to see Cam Nan. He was a first rounder, a bit of a, wouldn't say a bolter, but I was a bit surprised to see Hawthorn select him, but in that sort of Luke Bruce style mould. He's a bit taller, a bit more of that third tall. I think he plays a bit like Bruce, but he's probably more sized like a Jack Gunston. It'll be a really interesting sort of how they use him in that forward line, but he'll eventually get his run. He's just been held back a little bit at training just to make sure he's fully fit and firing.
Yeah, it's good to just keep a note of some of these names because as much as we get excited about, we want to know who's going to play round one, obviously, to pick in our teams. When we start doing some trades, 3, 4, 5 rounds into the season, we need some other cheapies to bring in. So, yeah, that could be the perfect time if one of these guys get a look in for us. Just a couple of other quick names that, potentially around that midfield mix. But, Henry Huswaite was someone that a lot of people jumped on last year. It didn't quite work out. He's still pretty cheap this year. And, Cam McKenzie's also been sort of on the verge of, is he a breakout candidate? He has been talked about for the last couple of years. Ever since his draft year, he actually put up some pretty good scores for us in SuperCoach in his first season. Can you see those guys breaking through this year?
I think Cam McKenzie is more likely than a Henry Huswaite, unfortunately for Henry. Obviously Cam had a ripping start to the season last year. If you remember, fractured his hand, went into the brace, didn't miss much footy, but just couldn't find his form after that. The confidence sort of dipped a little bit, and he ended up playing sub, and he was in the VFL as well. Full preseason, hopefully he can rid those demons a little bit and come back and as we've spoken about, there's absolutely a role for him if he can break in and find it. Whereas Huswaite is on the outside looking in. Last year was a bit shambolic for him where he'd start games and he'd be subbed out at half time and he played a lot of VFL. So I thought a fresh start for him would have been good, but I think the Hawks are pretty happy to hold on to him. He's a great depth option. Obviously a star at VFL level, and it's just a case of finding him a position in the midfield because he's a talent and he can find plenty of the ball.
Thank you for some fantastic nuggets there. That's exactly what we want to hear, and hopefully there'll be plenty more of that coming your way over the preseason. As you say, unofficial practice matches just around the corner. Then we get the official community series and round one not too far away. There is an official SuperCoach podcast league, open league. Jump in. The Phantom's Lair guys are talking up how many entrants they've already got in their league, but that's nothing. I'm sure we can top that over here. The code is 407756. So jump in, take us all on in that open league, and I'm sure we'll come up with some merch or some prizes for who tops that over the season. And we are aiming for 23k subscribers on the Code Sports YouTube channel. If you're watching this there, just hit like and subscribe and jump over there if you're not, because all our great content is on YouTube. And if we hit that number, we're talking about some live shows and some great initiatives. I think we'll go back to the league guys to tell us what they're going to do, but that's a number that I reckon we can hit as well. So we're getting very excited about the season coming very, very soon, and we'll be back here with more inside intel for your SuperCoach sides. We'll talk to you then.